Good evening. The planning board meeting for Thursday, October 8th. The virtual meeting will come to order. I'm going to first read the announcement that we
Community
require.
preservation.
Yeah, so the Community Preservation Committee, thank you. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people who may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Andover Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website at www.northandovermass.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately assess the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive records of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. So on to the agenda. The first item is discussion with Center Realty Trust. Brian, do you want to tee it up? Because I know you talked to Alex and make the introduction and everything.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks, John. We have Alex Loth joining us from the from Center Realty and Historic Society. I asked Alex to join us tonight because I know there's been a lot of goings on with some of their parcels in and around the old center, and obviously a lot of changes going on within the trust over the past year or so. I think we had a representative at one of our meetings last year where we had some discussions about the Academy Road parcel and a few other things. So I thought it'd be good to have Alex come on and give us a quick update of what they've been up to and give the committee a chance to at least understand that and perhaps ask a couple of questions if necessary. So. With that, Alex, sorry you're not seeing all of our shine. Oh, we've had looks like Rick Green just joined us as well. John, I don't know if you saw it. You guys probably can't see all this stuff, but looks like people are starting to get through on the computer. So Rick has joined us, and it looks like Terry's trying to get in. So anyway, with that said, there's Alex, and I can see Alex on his screen too. So I will. I guess hand it over to Alex if you want to maybe give everyone kind of a quick introduction as to where you're at, and we can go from there. Does that make sense? You're on mute. There we go.
I'm hearing you twice. I did hang up my phone. I'm not sure why I'm hearing you twice. Can everyone hear me okay?
Hear you fine.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, good. Well, it's nice to see some familiar faces out there, and thanks for having us, having the Center Realty Trust on to talk to everyone and update you what's going on. There's a ton of things going on with the Historical Society. I'm happy to talk to any of those things to the best of my extent, whatever questions you may have. And I'm happy to talk about the lots, the various lots we have around the area and tell you what's going on with that. Hang on one second. I'm hearing everything that happened about 20 seconds ago that's going on in my, I can just turn my volume down. There we go. Sorry for that. I was very distracted. So I'll back up a little bit. I'm new to the Historical Society about a year ago, and then I joined on to the Center Realty Trust as well to help out, because what's going on in the Historical Society right now has been very real estate heavy. So in addition to making a lot of changes to updating the mission of the Historical Society, bringing it into the 21st century, bringing in a lot of new blood. There's a lot of real estate things going on in that the trustees, as you know, of the Center Realty Trust changed over some time ago. We have new trustees. Myself, James Warden, and Kathy Stevens are the new trustees of the Center Realty Trust. And we've continued and maybe enhanced a policy moving forward on changing how we handle real estate. The Center Realty Trust was created back in the 1950s, as I think you know, as a way to historically preserve properties. Back then, there was no other way to do it. If you want to preserve something historically and take care of it, you had to buy it. So the Stevens and others went around and bought up all sorts of properties around the common with the idea of protecting them. Fast forward many years, we now have conservation restrictions. We have groups that can monitor those restrictions. And so we feel the time has come to divest of a certain number of properties we have to be able to focus more importantly on the core mission of preserving and displaying and explaining North Andover's history, both what we typically think of the society doing, the North Andover Historical Society doing, the mill stuff, the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s, but also looking forward as well and preserving today's North Andover history as well and what's going on today. As a very brief example, when the pandemic started, our new executive director started reaching out for people's stories. How is the pandemic affecting you? Gathering artifacts, some of the artwork that was done in the town. And I think it's a great example of taking today as history and archiving that going into the future, and not to diminish what was done in the past, but we're not just preserving old chairs. We're trying to think a little more dynamically about the history of North Andover, and hopefully not just the folks who own the mills in the land, but the people who worked in them. And anyway, broaden the scope. If you don't want to talk about the Historical Society, I'll talk to you a little bit about land. So what we're looking to do is there are things we own that are not central in any way to the North Andover Historical Society's mission. And those things we're looking to find proper stewards for and proper uses of that preserve them appropriately. And we've done some of that over the years. The house on Andover Street that was sold to Dan Leary some time back with restrictions on it. And I probably don't know the history of all the parcels, but over time we've done a few things. Just last year we sold 32 Johnson Street, also with restrictions on it. It's a two-family residence. It's not, we don't want to be residential landlords anymore. That's not what we do. It's not our core mission. It doesn't really generate enough funding to be worthwhile to do as a funding mechanism for who we are. It's not our core mission. So that's what we're working on. A couple things you've probably seen happen. We sold that property on Johnson Street. We put the Grange building on the market. And we now have that under agreement. And there is a proposal that should be put into the zoning board. It's taken a little bit of time for them to get all their ducks in a row. My understanding is that application is being made shortly for a November meeting at the zoning board to do a residential reuse of that building with appropriate historic restrictions on it. I believe the restrictions, I won't get too exact into them, but they preserve the exterior look of the building. And I believe the main staircase in that building as well. We have also just recently put on the market 18 to 20 Johnson Street, which is a yellow 4-family. You're probably aware of, nice looking building. And we should be putting that under agreement. I don't know if we sign the offer today or tomorrow, but it sounds like we have a good local steward for that property as well.
This is John.
Any questions so far?
Yeah, this is John, Alex. My apologies for interrupt. Can you talk a little bit more about the nature of the conservation restrictions? Like who holds the CR and how is it administered? And is it done just by the Historical Society, or do you have an external party that holds it? And what standard is it? Is it according to a standard, or is it just sort of a bespoke thing that you guys have ended up with?
John, I'm sorry to say I don't know the answer to that. I think that the Historic District Commission may have a part of it. We may have a part of some of them as well. Some of the properties go through both of us, but in terms of exactly who holds which one, I'd have to research that and look it up for you.
Okay, and when the properties are sold, does the money go back into the general coffers of the Historical Society? Is that where it goes?
It's a little more complicated. It does go into the Center Realty Trust first, which is a separate entity. And then the Center Realty Trust does at times make disbursements to the Historical Society.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
No, fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. And if I don't respond, wave at me or something. I have the volume down because everything that's happening, I hear 20 seconds later coming out of my computer. So I was gonna briefly mention a couple of lots that we are working on as well. I'm looking at a map, that's why I look over to the side here. Center Realty Trust owns a piece of land next to the Dan Leary's house, otherwise known as directly behind the brick store on Andover Street. And we also own a piece of land next to Cranberry Lane. And we're interested in disposing appropriately of those two lots, and we've had some conversations about those. And the third one we've been working on lately, to bring you up to speed, is it was part of the 2014-2015 deal that was made. It's on Academy Road next to the trustees, kind of across from it's next to the trustees' land. It's where the trail comes up through the trustees' land and crosses across Academy Road. It's a small parcel there. And we're working with the trustees of reservations to potentially transfer that over to them. We don't see any point in us continuing to hold on to that parcel. They're really the right stewards for that. And that's not a sale type thing. We would be giving it to them. In fact, they wanted us to spend some money in order to give it to them. So we're still working that out. So that's where we are. I think in the future, we'd actually like to disband CRT entirely, and any assets that we hold on to move into another related entity we have, the Brick Store Company. We're not planning to get rid of the Brick Store. We're not currently planning to get rid of the Hay Scales building, and nor any of our other historic properties, the Johnson Cottage, the actual small Hay Scales building, the Parson Barnard, etc. I can speak to the Carolyn Stevens Center if you have any interest in what's going on in the Textile Museum, or I can take questions, whichever you want me to do.
Alex, it's Brian. If you can, I'll wave to you if you can't hear me.
I can see you.
So there are, so you mentioned the three, I guess if we're focused just on vacant land for now, you mentioned the three parcels kind of around the center. You guys also, I believe, own another parcel further down Academy and then the lot adjacent to the church, correct?
Yes, so there is a lot adjacent to the church. We also own a parcel next to the cemetery.
Okay. I mean, any plans for those along with the other three that you're talking about? Plan on moving on from them?
Yeah, we don't have any current plans to do anything with those two lots right now. But if there's an opportunity to move them to another steward,
okay,
we'd be open to it.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's fair to say that any piece of open property in the old center that is owned by the Historical Society would be of interest to the CPA. I mean, that's generally, preserving the shape and the character of the old center is actually probably one of the core things that we end up doing. I have no idea if the parcels that you're talking about are in the situation where they're developable or not, and which ones are protected or not. But I mean, I think we would certainly hope that we would have a dialogue about all those open parcels.
Yeah, Brian, do I have the ability to present?
I don't know the answer to that. Let me see. If you scroll to the bottom, you may have that option. There you go.
How's that?
Perfect.
Do you see a map?
I can see it. Yep.
Okay, so this was actually part of the 2014 presentation to the CPC. It's convenient because it highlights a lot of the properties that we're talking about here. To go up to the legend, there were the three in red that were the subject of that whole deal that was made in 2014, 2015 to really extinguish a lot of development possibilities along Academy Road. Existing conservation land is green, mostly, if not all entirely, trustees of reservation. And then it's a little bit confusing because the blue is a combination of other CRT properties and things owned by the town or the church. But you can see the three red lots, and then you can see the CRT labeled lots off of Cranberry Lane and off of Andover Street. And that's probably what we want to discuss tonight. Is that helpful to have that map there?
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yeah, very helpful.
so just to be clear, the 3 lots on Academy Road they're protected now, right? So there's nothing on Academy Road that's empty land that is not protected or otherwise has a house on it, correct?
Nothing that we own.
Okay. So then the 2 properties, okay, I see the one on, Cranberry Lane. Where is the second one, Alex? Maybe it's just me. I'm not seeing where that second parcel is.
Sure, it's down the bottom here. It's behind the brick store by the, it borders the brick store and the Masonic Lodge and the playground and Dan Leary's house.
Maybe, can you scroll down on the,
It's shown. Yeah, it's plans.
right there, now, yeah, okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, frankly, we think the best steward for that may actually be Dan Leary. But that's something we'll have to work out.
Well, I mean, that's, in the end, I'm only speaking for myself, but a permanent protection of it, whether it's public or private, is to some degree is not the thing, but just that it is preserved and that there's no housing built on it.
Yeah, and so that's why we're working on these 2, John. You're absolutely right, is because these both, we think there is potential to develop the one on Cranberry Lane, and I'm not sure about the one on Andover Street, but either way, our intent is to make it so those development rights are extinguished, and we're open to ideas to make that happen.
Hey, Alex, are there anything that you're aware of in the deeds in the parcel now that have them protected from when you acquire them? No, just your mission as an entity prevents development.
That's correct.
Got okay. Okay.
And has there been any discussion with the town or Rick Gorman about that parcel adjacent to the youth center as a some combination of field area for the youth center?
Yeah, Bill, I thought the same thing. We have not, as far as I know, no one has reached out from CRT to Rick Gorman or the youth center or the town about it. I believe that along behind the Masonic Lodge and the parking lot and turning along the line by the playground, you have wetland. And actually there's a kind of an intermittent stream that goes behind the brick store and the parking.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's too much of an impediment to development or not, I don't know.
Okay.
It may very well be.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the same thing. I said, geez, there could be more parking lot back there or something else.
Mm-hmm. And then Alex, if no one has questions about that lot, lot 3, has, when it was done in 2014-15 as part of this master plan, did show a parking lot and was presented at town meeting with a parking lot, in that parcel, and was, I believe even plans were made by Gene Enright on that to show how it would work, and that was sort of part of the proposal that was presented at town meeting. And we've looked into it since then, and it seems that there's a restriction on the parcel that says, Center Realty Trust, as the owner, has the sole authority and right to build a parking lot there. So it's possible. But at the time we spoke to the prior incarnation of the CRT, we heard that it was not part of their plan, at least for the next 10 to 15 years. And, furthermore, that lot, along with lot 1, essentially says, there's a conservation restriction with an easement for travel. So in the case of lot 1, you can, use that great path and walk through that space and so forth during the day. In the case of lot 3, there's nowhere to travel. And currently, there's no ability to even enter the lot to enjoy the conservation restriction or easement that belongs on it. So, that for some members of our committee was a little bit of a disappointment, and maybe something we could revisit as we move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, because as the new guy, as I started to look into this, I said kind of the same thing. I said, why is lot 3 sitting the way it is? And so we need to spend a little more time internally. I haven't done this yet. I need to check and make sure there's no reason why the fence along the front has to stay there. I understand that if we go ahead and build a parking lot there, we have to put up another fence on the north side of it, screening the resident. That is in the deed. And I didn't watch the town meeting, but I did look at the original proposal and the wording of it, et cetera. And the good thing is, the way the deed is written, we have the ability to do. We didn't create such a onerous restriction that we couldn't do a parking lot there.
Right.
So legally speaking, we can do a parking lot there if that's eventually what, overall the stakeholders around the common think is a good idea. Then a parking lot can be built, which is good. I understand the language was written very carefully, at least in the final agreement, regardless of what was said at town meeting. The language was very careful to say that CRT has the ability, the right to, or the
Right.
potential to, that sort of thing. It didn't say obligated to. I think what we would like to discuss kind of globally with you folks, and then whoever it makes sense in the town to talk to, is, what is the best thing to do for parking around the common, and how can the lots that we own be an appropriate part of that? Because as we have these lots that we're looking to do something with, and of course we have lot 3 already, and so I guess we're open to that discussion, and we're open to doing something that makes the common better for everyone. I mean, at the same time, we're putting a ton of blood and sweat and funding into the Carolyn Stevens Center, which has been sort of extra parking for the common. Well, we're going to start utilizing that building more. So to some degree, I expect and hope that we will need parking there for our own people who are going to come and see this amazing, beautiful new North Andover Museum that we're creating. So that may put even more pressure on the common. In fact, I hope it does, to find other places to park. So I guess the answer is whatever happened in the past, but let's move forward and try to find a good use of the land we have, if there's anything appropriate. You know what I mean?
Well, if I could just chime in, I think it's important. One thing that CPC learned was that what we present at town meeting and then what is written in final documents needs to align. So the town of North Andover and the voters of North Andover expected that to be a parking lot. So what ended up in the final documents is one thing, but what was presented to the voters, the legislative body at town meeting, was almost kind of something different. So at a bare minimum, I like that you mentioned, Alex, that we're looking to take that fence down. It's not private property. It should be, more accessible to the taxpayers. And if we can find a way to, make that a parking lot, that'd be great. If for any reason it's not doable anymore. And again, like I said, community preservation definitely learned from that experience that what is voted on at town meeting needs to be in final documents.
Out of curiosity, who made the
voters, and it was the taxpayers' money that paid for it. So I'm just piggybacking on Bill, and I'm coming at it a little differently, but I think that's what we're trying to stress. This has definitely been an issue for a few years.
Mm-hmm. Tracy, who made out of curiosity, who made the presentation at town meeting?
I think John would answer that. I'm not positive. Well, CRT, but I'm not sure. I wasn't on community preservation at the time.
I was a selectman. I have a reasonably decent memory, but I don't know for sure. It might have been one of those years that we actually didn't even end up presenting, making a
But
presentation.
it'd be written into the record.
No, that's right. Well, you didn't let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Was that there might have been a presentation, there might not have been a presentation, but you're right that there was a document that was prepared that made that stipulation in it. So it might have been a little bit amorphous, but I think a reasonable person would conclude that the intent was to put a parking lot there. So I think at this point, Alex, you're on the right path. Is you ought to look into it and see whether there's any things that preclude us from doing that. I don't know why, if it makes sense to do, why we can't do it. It might cost you a little bit of money, but then again, I think you're talking about something that's pervious pavement and relatively modest in terms of cost, almost like what the trustees have up at Stevens School. And so I wouldn't imagine anything would be very expensive.
I think by the time you take that fence and open up that stone wall and then build another 8-foot fence and put in a pervious parking area, yeah, I mean, it's not millions of dollars.
Even a gravel,
Yeah.
Yep.
just more accessible to the folks, I guess, is
Well,
the
so
main-
maybe you can answer for me. What was the intent of the parking lot? What problem were we solving? Who was the user that we thought would park there
accessibility to the common.
to the common?
Yeah, I mean, it was, and obviously, one of the things that happens is that, even at a very minimal level, that when the church has events, parking goes up and down Academy Road, this would clean that up. But I think, Alex, to your broad point of looking at the overall parking in the old center, I mean, I think that's a broader public policy issue in the town. It's something that I can talk to Gene about. Because it's one of those things that probably the vast majority of the time there's satisfactory parking in the common, but there's like a peak load phenomenon that you have, and that's what you have to deal with. But at some level, when you get to really big peak loads, even an extra parking lot there isn't going to deal with that problem. So I think we got to get some smart people together and try to figure out what the best solution is for the long term.
Yeah,
Alex, to
I
your
like the
knowledge,
idea of. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
to your knowledge, is the parcel at Cranberry Lane all upland?
Yeah, I think so. I walked it. It looked like it.
Okay.
I'm no wetlands expert, but
Good disclaimer. I'm just looking on the town GIS. It's not shown as any kind of wetland on the town GIS. So
that to me is a better spot, or maybe a more widely useful spot for a parking lot. On lot 3, I feel like that parking lot would probably get a lot of use by the church.
right.
And that's a conversation we can have, that perhaps they want to do something, partner with us somehow to make a parking lot there.
Okay.
But I guess you're right, John. If in any way we can help with those larger conversations with the town, whoever the appropriate people are, then Gene's always a good place to start.
Good. Well put. Yeah.
So Alex, just to be clear on this, the other land parcels, the Andover Street and also they're not currently on the market right now. You're still going through your research process. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't even discussed putting them on the open market. I don't think it'll come to that.
Okay. Yeah, whether it goes to an abutter or someone else, you try to make the right deal. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I had nothing more on land. I am curious what's happening with how the renovation's going.
Any other questions on land? Bill, did you have something?
I just wanted to say, now that there's been some turnover, if you needed any help with if the CRT needed any help with the application process for CPC funds, we usually look for submissions in, January, February to get everything approved for town meeting. That's something we could certainly do, is walk through the applications, and if there's a meeting we need to that someone, the chair or someone could attend, we'd be happy to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Turnover. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if your group and us, either together or separately, have some conversations with stakeholders in town, maybe we can get to a point where we have an application, where one of these lots makes sense for the town to use, if that's what we're thinking. Yeah, that would be good. I'm glad you guys reached out. Do you want me to fill you in on the Textile Museum?
Agree if you don't mind.
We rechristened the Carolyn Stevens Center. The Stevens family has been deeply involved in the Historical Society. Really, they founded it, and the Stevens family donated the land for that, which also is the land underpinning the Johnson Cottage, and built that building to house their collection of textile implements, etc., which became the world famous North American Textile Museum. That's how I learned it as a kid. It was not just the North American Textile Museum; it was the world famous North American Textile Museum, which moved, and the building kind of went downhill ever since. We had the printing museum in there, et cetera, et cetera. It became a white elephant. There were a lot of different plans, as you're probably all well aware of what to do with that property. It almost became townhome condominiums until enough research was done where we realized that that property, the property underpinning it, couldn't be sold. So it's a far better use of the property. It was designed and built as a museum. It's not a historic building, but it's an iconic building. It's been around since 1960. We realized that if we do it smart and we don't spend a ton of money on energy, if we do an energy efficient renovation of the building, which we've now done, that we can afford to use that building and we can really broaden what we do. We go from being what some people call a house museum to being a real center for history in the town. So that's what we've been doing. We have gone through the building, redone the roof, redone the dormers, replaced every window, gutted the inside, re-insulated the inside, rewired it, dried out the basement, put in drainage. The back of the building, that annex off the back, which at one point we were thinking about ripping off, was a set of metal stacks and archives back there. We've removed all that metal, and it's being turned into a theater, about a 75-seat theater with a huge movie screen and a projector, et cetera. It can be used for all sorts of different presentations. And part of our thinking on this building is not only do we get to use it to show North Andover's history and engage people in North Andover's history, but there's some amount of public use of the building as well. We have extra space in this building. So there's space for people to have meetings, there's space for performances in there. We think it'll be a huge addition to the common and to the town in general. So we've gotten through what we call, or just about through what we call phase one of our renovations there. We've started moving on to, there'll be a capital campaign that'll be starting soon. We have quite a few donors already, but we're actually coming out with a full-on capital campaign. There's information about it and a brochure on the North Andover Historical Society's website as well, and we continually update that with images as we go along. I expect there'll be more open houses when the weather gets better, and especially when the pandemic hopefully eventually is gone. So that's the vision. We'll have a whole new center for the North Andover Historical Society and some public space right on the common. So it's pretty exciting. Along with, I think you're aware, we have a new executive director, Carol Majahad, has not left. She will continue to do the education role that she's done for the past 35 years, I think it is. And we brought on Brian Howard from a historical society in upstate New York, who's been a great leader so far. He's engaged throughout the community and has been a good partner on this building project that we've been doing. So that's what the Historical Society has been up to. It's been busy. We got a lot going on. Any questions?
None from me.
That's great. It's really exciting.
Thank you for coming in. Very, very well done.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh.
All right. Well, you guys know where to find me if you need anything else, and we'll continue to talk. And how would you like me to follow up on some of these open questions here? What's the best way to get answers back to your group?
John, if you're okay, I'll take the lead on communicating with Alex on that, and then distribute that back to the committee, as we get it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Brian.
Great.
I just want to answer John's questions on the restrictions that he brought up.
Yep.
So, okay. Great. Well, you want me to hop off so you can finish your meeting?
Sorry for the tech difficulties. Thank you for all the time tonight.
It's all working great now. So, all right. Have a good night, all.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, that's the first item. That was a good discussion. Brian, thank you for bringing Alex in. So, yeah. So this is I know, I think I've told a few guys, I aged myself here because Alex was in the middle school class with my daughter. So it's a small world. So the second item is the Oosler parking lot, and Brian suggested we have that up for discussion. So I don't know, Brian, if you want to start first, or
Yeah, I want to kind of figure out what our next steps are, what our best path forward is on this. I mean, I know and has a potential to be a sensitive issue. Even though we've got all the rights to do what we think we need to do, we want to be good neighbors and everything else that goes along with it. If I'm, remembering our conversations from last year on it. So I can't recall where we left off from a plan idea standpoint. Do we even have, if we got a representative from the family to kind of join us for one of our meetings, could we have kind of an open discussion about what we're planning to do, what we'd like to do, get some feedback, and try and have a good dialogue with the committee? I think that's my thought on it, and just wanted to put that out there to everyone else, figure out how we take those next steps on that one. Kind of almost similar to how we had the ongoing discussions. It was a little bit different with Rolling Ridge, but we were able to finally get that one kind of over the hump after a few back and forth with Reverend Jay. So, but I don't know any of them. I don't have any relationships with them, so that's why I'm kind of putting it out to the group. I think, John, you maybe, if you had a relationship with them or with their attorney at one point.
Yeah, I mean, I've as when we did the deal, we dealt with the family secondarily. I met them a few times, and with their attorney, who would be the logical place of initial contact. At this point, I do think we have to be careful. It's, when you're dealing with a private party as opposed to a public party like Rolling Ridge, I think you have to be a little bit more discreet in terms of how you engage them. But I think the direction that we're going, that you want to take it, Brian, is the right direction. It's just a question of how we do it. The only other thing that I would do is, I just don't know, because I didn't go out on the walk the day that people walked it and what they came up with. I also don't know if we directly engaged the Trails Committee, and maybe secondarily, who are the official stewards of the property, of the best way we want to deal with it. I mean, I was up last weekend actually on Osgood Hill, and it was the first time in a long time. It struck me that they put a lot of time and effort and thought into the trail pattern and how it runs and where they want to route people and so forth. So anything that we do here, because it's going to involve parking, but it's also going to involve a trail, should fit into their integrated strategy. So it might be a first step if we bring Glenn in or somebody else from the Trails Committee and talk to them about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I've been looking through the parcels and looking at it. It is interesting, and just how the house, and the driveway sort of intersect. And even there's an old sort of dead road that the town owns up there too, which, a paper road looks like to me. I mean, I'm not, an expert, but I do think it would be good to get some people together. I did talk to Terry, in passing the past couple of weeks, and one of the things that he mentioned was that Councilor Smolak is quite busy at this time with various things, and thought that he would have to find alternative counsel for the family in this matter, because he's got too much on his plate to properly represent them at this time. So I think, if the way I would look at it is, I think there does need to be outreach. It seems to me it would be a fair thing to reach out in some sort of an official capacity to the family and say, this is something we're looking at. We understand that you have counsel and you had counsel when you allowed the sale to happen back however many years ago. We would like to, we're, starting the process of figuring out how to do this. And we would like to know, who we should, who's going to represent you. And then I agree, we bring in the trails people to talk about how we sort of make that whole piece work as a recreation open space area. And I think we start the conversation, in that way. I think we have to bring a few parties together. And to me, it always seems to make more sense to, and I'm not as conversant with the public meeting laws. How do you sort of bring a bunch of the parties together simultaneously so that it's not sort of an achingly slow process? Because if we meet once a month and then somebody misses a month and we're talking to one party and then we wait another month to react to the news from the other party, how does that work? Is there a way to sort of, maybe we bring in Suzanne and say, how do we, get these negotiations going in such a way that everybody here and we all in real time sort of adapt and lay out the issues and sort of work through them one by one, as opposed to, sort of we talk to one party and then we talk to another party, then I just think it could be very slow and very cumbersome. We could be talking about this for, 2
So it's been long and cumbersome already. I mean, not to interrupt. And I know I'm going to be the thorn on the rose, as I usually am, about the parking lots. I see your eyes rolling, John. That's fine. But we're discussing this like it's a new negotiation. It's not. It was negotiated years ago. It went before town meeting. I mean, again, I know, John, with the eye rolling, I get it. I'm the thorn on the rose. I understand that. But we're having I want the parking lot in that area. I leave it to Rick. I leave it to the people who know best about how, recreation areas like this should be. But this particular conversation does confuse me a little, because we bought the land, the parking lot was part of it. I feel like we're having a conversation from point A when we're already at Y. Who we're going to negotiate with, a new attorney, a new this. I mean, it's already all in the documents. Maybe I'm not following correctly, but I believe we already have the right to put in the parking lot and then build from there. There's already a paper road that,
Well,
I guess I'm not following.
Well, we do. We do have the right to do it. I don't think anybody's denied. I probably wouldn't use the term negotiation, because I don't think that's really what it is.
Well, it's been used a couple of times. I guess that's why I'm confused.
I wasn't the first one to use it. So what I'm suggesting is that based on our experience when we went back and forth quite a bit on Rolling Ridge, there is an element of give or take in these sorts of things about what you end up with, because the exact location of where the parking was going to be was not specified as part of the thing. So you want to have good faith, and you want to be a good neighbor. And my point. No,
I thought it was specified. I thought we have drawings. We have.
Well, no, we don't.
We've gone over this for, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years.
My point is, we don't have a clear plan. If we do have a clear plan, I don't know where it is. I haven't seen it. And that's my point. It's that before we talk to anybody about what we intend to do, you have to have a plan. And I think that the people that make most sense, Rick, I'm glad you're sort of part of the group now, because I think you you can be a key stakeholder with this, but it's also the Trails Committee and what their preference would be and to a secondary degree, the Conservation Commission. And
Agree. I guess my only point, and then I'll be done, is that going forward, I think it's really important that this committee doesn't make deals like this anymore. Because we've continuously done this time and again, where we present something at town meeting and then we change it 5 years later, or we have, though, John, we have. I mean, I'm not placing blame. I'm just saying.
what changed?
Well, we had a parking lot on Lot C, no longer. We had a Usler parking lot. How many years did it take to get the parking lot out? I'm just saying that there's.
This is the problem: is you're accusing people of acting in.
I'm not
bad
accusing
faith.
anyone. I'm saying we've
Yes,
made mistakes.
You're saying that anybody was
We have.
acted in bad faith, and that's not true.
No. I'm not. I didn't say bad faith. I'm saying
Yes, but that's exactly what you said.
Well, John, I'm not saying that. I didn't say anything in bad faith. I'm saying that going forward, when we present something to town meeting, that is what we need to follow through on. You can take it personally. It's certainly not meant personally, but I know I've been on this committee for a number of years, trying to push forward things that we placed in front of town meeting, that the legislative body of this community voted for and spent a lot of money on, that we still don't have. I'm saying we need to be more careful when we move forward in purchasing land and or presenting what that land will look like down the road. We have not given that on a number of properties that we have bought through the years. It is not a personal attack, John. It's just a fact. We've been arguing back and forth and discussing this for many years. That's my only point, is we should learn from the past and do better in the future. That's all.
Well, if I may kind of get us back on track to this particular item, kind of to John's point, I'm not aware of plans that have been specifically laid out as to where and how big of a parking lot there is. If they're out there, I haven't seen them. We were a bit more of an advantage because we had that in Rolling Ridge, right? We had a real plan that we had to go out there and just kind of field verify when the Reverend was changing things on site. There's a lot of other things that went on with Rolling Ridge, but in the interest of moving this one forward, I don't know why we wouldn't take a similar approach. We were able to do it, to your point, Bill, on Rolling Ridge. I think myself, John, and Terry went out to the site with Gene, I think was out there, and maybe one other person from the town, and we kind of looked at it, eyeballed it, and we were able to get it moving. I don't know why we wouldn't be able to do the same thing at Usler, make contact with the appropriate people have someone, have Glenn there or someone from the Trails Committee, along with someone, member of the family. We all looking at the same thing, come up with an idea, then come back to the committee with a more concrete plan of, we've got stakeholder buy-in on all these items. Let's try and push it forward. Does that seem to make sense? I think that passed muster at the Rolling Ridge side. I don't know why it wouldn't here, in interest of getting this one to the next step.
Agree.
Yeah, I think that's the way we should go. I mean, I think, it's a two-part thing, kind of, because the fact that we don't have a plan just makes it that much harder. And it's a tricky parcel, because it's not like there's a clear, like, just to compare it even with the parcel up by the common, it's not nestled in that way. It's really sort of wedged in. You've got Edgewood on one side, property on the other side, the house sort of in the middle. And so, I certainly think, we do have to work with the landowner carefully to get there. And I know, and I also know on the other side that sometimes when we do these things, we're we have to act with, almost reckless speed, because we may be competing against a developer who has cash on the barrel, and we might not be able to take, the extra time, and we can only act once a year to do this. So I think, looking at it from a global view, right now it's sort of incumbent on us to get the ball rolling and get things moving, and make it sort of work. But this is a very tricky parcel, and the fact that it was negotiated before, the purchase was made, makes it that much trickier, right? Because, I go by there a lot, and it really looks like, I mean, there's no inkling that that's not all one lot owned by one homeowner. And it doesn't look like there's any sort of natural spot where you're just sort of, right now, not with a landscape architect and a planner and so forth and some creativity, maybe we'll get there. But right now, there's no easy spot where you could just say, oh, we put the parking lot here. It could be shielded by a few bushes, and, everything looks fine. It's not an easy, not at all. So I think it's gonna take some time, but I think, getting the actors in the room, it just has to happen with haste. Like, it has to happen this fall. I think we got to get some people together and start talking and try to figure out when we can get, some traction on this.
Yeah, I
Because
think
we also have the town, the town's supposed to build it, and that's not an easy thing to sort of to do either, right? Like, I don't know if the town has the money, how expensive it would be, and then just how to get the town to do something. I know that's not easy, and I've heard that from John.
Yeah, and to build on that point a little bit, I think your comment of, sometimes you have to act so we can get these things through our committee and in before the town, so that it doesn't go out to a public bidding process and then we lose the opportunity. I get that, and the good news is I don't think we're bound by that on this parcel at this point anymore, because we're not looking for funding. We can take our time, do it right. And I know, again, I haven't been on the committee as long. I know that there's, that this has been out there for a while, but I think we're at right now. I don't see any reason we couldn't try and get the right people together this fall, before the snow starts to cover everything, and then we, maybe lose, what is best for both us and for the homeowner. And you're right, it's a tricky parcel. I think it bottlenecks to about 60 feet wide up there at one point on the parcel line, and you don't want to have the trail cutting too close to the house. We don't want it, and they certainly wouldn't want it. So I think think maybe a formal note from the committee that, hey, we'd like to meet on site, because I don't know that getting together, frankly, right now in a Zoom call is going to advance the discussion. I think it's one of those things you've got to have boots on the ground and really have a look at it and get buy-in from all the appropriate stakeholders and say, okay, we can move forward. That's what I would suggest. So, but it starts with figuring out how to make good contact with the family and get that discussion going. So, Rick, you want to jump into this one?
I would agree with you. The best way to get things rolling is to have a meeting on site. Find out what each of the stakeholders would like to see with the piece of land. Find out where the trail needs to go, and then we just work from there. I don't think it's that complicated. I'm not familiar with that parcel of land, but I think we could certainly figure something out. I'm sure I could come up with a few ideas, at least to get the ball rolling. So I think I agree with you, Brian and Bill, that we should have a meeting out there, this fall with the stakeholders, and we should be able to get the ball rolling from there.
So, I don't know, John, what do you think would be the best way to make contact with the family? Do we send them a letter if we don't know them? You're on mute, John.
Let me talk to Smolik, even though he's sort of not technically the counsel. He will tell us what's the best way to contact them. I don't even know. I mean, I'm not even sure that who in the family's even living there today and stuff like that. So what's the best way to go approach them? I also think is part of that, and Rick, I'm glad you're helping out. I think we have to bring Glenn into the picture, as I said, because what you want there is you want something that fits into the overall trail scheme, because if you put a parking lot there, you obviously have to have a trail to get into the main set of trails. And if that's a really complicated thing, you just have to be mindful of that. If it's going to cost a lot of money to extend the trail to where it exists today, you might take a little bit different approach. I don't know. I'm just not aware of where the trails go. So I think it's a two-step process. I think we need to engage him right away, and then we jump to having a meeting and maybe obviously have him join and participate in that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is one thing where I'm kind of a process guy, and when I think about sort of the process of this, I think about us speaking as a committee and saying as a committee, this is what we're trying to do. So, when I think about an approach, I would think, we could send a letter, registered mail, to the property owner, send a letter also to Councilor Smolak and copy them both, and try to make contact with all due haste, because I mean, I know that the pandemic happened, but we certainly brought this up last year and we had the same action step, and we didn't really get, we didn't make any progress last year on this, and that may have been entirely pandemic, it may have been partially pandemic, but I just think from a process standpoint, we're a committee legally, and we're a legal entity in the town, and we have certain powers and so forth, and so I think we should kind of speak from that place and say, we could ask Suzanne or Laurie to draft up a letter and say, pursuant to this agreement that you signed, we made this sale.
Bill, I mean, I understand where you're going, and with great respect, I think sending a registered letter to them without privately back channeling would be the worst possible thing we could do, because what it would do is it would absolutely freak them out, and they would be immediately distrustful. What you want to do is
John, I would say that I'm not suggesting that this registered letter come out of the blue. What I'm suggesting is that we could do both, and because I think it's kind of like,
well, the problem is you want to talk to them first and say, look, we're finalizing this. This is the approach that we want to take. Can we come and go talk to you about it? If your first step is we have the rights to do this and we're going to send you a letter, they're going to freak out.
That's not in it. But John, I mean, let's just kind of take a look at this and back up a little bit and think about, how this worked. Go back to the beginning. And so we have a parcel of land that very much looks like a very large house lot, and we stopped houses from being built there. But it wasn't presented as we're going to buy a bunch of land around another house so that no other houses go in this area, because I'm not so sure that that town meeting would have gone for that. I recall the town meeting presentation where we talked about the vista and how great it would be to walk along this land. And that sort of was the value proposition of buying this property, which was very pricey, 1.3 million, 1.35 million or something like that. That is a substantial sum of money that the town exercised. And I don't think the town would have exercised it absent the passive recreation uses. So well, I don't think we're saying, no. Okay, I'll let you go, John.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but my point is we are where we are, and what I'm suggesting is that we have to have a plan. We have to have a consensus on what we want done. And that's the very first step. And, that's why I think the first step is to talk to Glenn and the Conservation Commission. And Rick, maybe you can help out and do that. And if that involves a walk out there, I think you can take a walk out there anyway, because you own the land. So it's, I don't think that's a problem going out there. Then the second step would be, once you figured out what you want to do, is you go to them and tell them that, look, this is what we want to do, but we want to have a dialogue with you because we want to be respectful neighbors. And you have that conversation.
Is Jillian on the call tonight by chance? Or if not, I can email her in the morning. I'm just curious as to what exactly was put before town meeting, because I tend to lean with Bill. I agree with Bill. There's no way $1.3 million would have been okayed by the taxpayers if they didn't think it would become a passive recreation area for their use. And I do agree. Nobody knows that you drive by it, it just looks like a stunning piece of property.
Well,
We didn't
I don't-
conserve it
I'm
to,
just agreeing with you on that, but what's the point? We're talking about
I mean,
building.
I know, John, it's gone on, and I feel like,
Well, maybe.
I mean, I have to admit, I'm really confused by this.
Property and
Go
come
ahead.
up with a plan.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do. It sounds like you're.
Well, I know
again,
I've walked it. Terry's walked it. You've walked it. We walked it with conservation. We knew exactly where the parking lot was going to go. It was going to be crushed stoned. We mapped it out. We know exactly where it's going to go.
And then
At the bottom of the driveway, to the left, that would take you right up the what do you call it? The trail. And then Terry's walked it because they were actually throwing, if you recall, there was a conversation, I think last year, that Terry every time he walks it to check it, they're throwing brush on the trail so that it's blocking the trail. That was an issue that we brought up. And I mean, it's, I guess, John, I think there's frustration among the committee, but there's definitely frustration among people that want to use that area and be able to just pull in and park and take their walk or take their dog. I mean, it's $1.3 million. It's gone on for years. And again, you roll the eyes. I know I frustrate you and I apologize for that. But I do feel as though somebody has to say something. I'm with Bill that it would not have passed at town meeting.
Well, Tracy, we're not relitigating that. That's fine. I agree
I know,
with that.
but what we actually said when it was passed is that we would put in a parking lot.
Well,
6 years later, you now want to renegotiate. We're not renegotiating. We just need to move forward.
If you know exactly where the parking lot is going to be, how it's exactly going to work, then go
Fine,
right
it's
to
a
the
parking
that's what you're going to do and work with Gene and put it in.
Listen, I don't mean to be upsetting you so much this evening. My apologies. I'm not trying to get your dander up, but at all. I'm really just.
Well, I guess my point
I
is.
don't know why you're taking it
Suggested
so
two next.
personal.
Do you agree with those next steps or not?
Actually, I don't. I don't feel like we need to start a whole new negotiation. I think we should be respectful.
So then what do you recommend? What do you recommend that we
you
do?
want to talk? Okay, I'm done then.
What do you recommend specifically that we do?
Okay, all right. I've obviously made you very angry. My apologies. But my point is that I'm in 110% agreement that we should reach out to the Usula family and let them know that we will be moving forward with what was agreed upon years ago when they received $1.3 million, that we will be putting in the parking lot and we'll be working with different departments and what have you, and we will keep them abreast every step of the way. I am under no circumstances, John, am I saying don't be respectful to the Usler family or let them be aware. But I will very clearly state that I disagree with a renegotiation of something that's been negotiated years ago for quite a bit of taxpayer money. I'm not sure. I'm really confused by the conversation, and I definitely agree with Bill that, town meeting would have never gone for this to protect that pretty building. It just wouldn't have happened. And the parking lot and the rest of it should have been done years ago. You and I have had an ongoing battle about this. This is why you're frustrated. I understand. Again, it's not a personal thing, but I think we really do need to take into account how much money this committee has spent of taxpayer dollars on things that we have promised at town meeting that have not come to fruition. And I think we need to learn from that and be smarter going forward. That's my whole point this evening. I do not think we need to move into new negotiations over something that was negotiated years ago and well paid for. That's all I'm saying. It is not a personal affront to you or anyone who sat on this committee before me.
Is anyone aware of any plans that exist after previous walkthroughs of this particular parcel? I don't think that I've seen them if they do. I kind of wish Terry was here because I know Terry was walking that.
No, I mean, I walked it last year. We took a look, walked it with Terry. It was, a good walk. I just think it's, to me, it's just like, let's make sure we come out of the blocks this year with a head of steam.
Sure.
And I think that's, certainly we call the property owner, we call the property owner's lawyer, we call the trails people, etc. I think the more people we get, more attention we get on this, we need a sense of urgency, right? Like it passed in town meeting in 2012, it's 2020, and we're heading into 2021 town meeting. I mean, giddy up.
I think everyone gets that part of it, which is why we're talking about it tonight anyway. So let's press ahead. If we can't tell, I think to John's point, we can't tell the Uslers, here's what we're doing until we have that plan to say, this is what we're doing. Which if that already exists from prior walkthroughs, let's figure out, I'll reach out to Terry, let's find out, track that down. If that doesn't exist, that the next step is to develop that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess my spin is just a little different in that I'm assuming that we don't have the final spot sort of nailed down, and saying that if we brought the family and or their representatives in as we develop that, we might avoid longer roadblocks down the road. So if we can get, if we get everybody in the room to start, I think that's fine. I mean, if we want to say like, I'm all about let's put, a line in the sand that says, okay, if we are going to, as long as we have a definite approach, I think with some sort of time-bound way, that by November, we're going to have, we want to take these 3 steps. If we're going to get a plan done, I just want 3 concrete, or however many concrete steps we need. I want to be able to see them and sort of tick them off so that we are making some progress. Because last year it was, we'll call John Smolak and we'll get going, and nothing happened. So that's all I'm saying. If it's whatever gets this done the fastest, I'm fine with doing. But let's have a plan. If we wanted to say as an action item for next month's meeting that we have, an order of operations of how we do this and who's responsible and when we want it done by, that would be fine with me, as long as it's something we can come back to every meeting, and measure our progress.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we talked about probably 20 minutes ago now at this point. So let's, I mean, why wouldn't we just, I don't know if we need to make a motion or not, but I'm willing to say that, between this meeting and next meeting, we will, and I'm happy to take ownership of this. We'll contact the Trails Committee. We will have a contact with the family, and we'll arrange a date try to arrange a date between this meeting and next meeting to be on property and come back to the committee in the November meeting with a rough plan of what we intend to do. Yeah. And that will keep us moving. I don't see why we wouldn't go ahead with that. And again, I'm happy to take it's around the corner from my house. It's easy for me to get out there. Rick, if you're interested in participating and being there, we have to probably keep it under a meeting, to do that. And again, not in the negotiation standpoint, but again, in the spirit of being good neighbors, say, this is what we're doing, hear out any concerns that are there, because the plan still does have to be fair. It has to be formalized in terms of where these things are going to go. Get the Trails Committee input in terms of what's the best for them. Come up with a plan and have that, presented back to the CPC in due course, and then figure out which, how we go to the town and get this on the project schedule for the spring, because it's not going to happen this winter.
Right. No,
Right,
I agree with you.
Agree.
All right. So if everyone's okay with that timeline, I'm happy to. I don't know, John, do we have to make a motion on that, or?
I don't think so. I mean, it's, as long as we memorialize that, we follow up with it, Brian, I think we're fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm
Is the documentation for the approval of this purchase from town meeting, is that information
Yes.
readily available?
It is.
Yeah.
I'll
I
have
would
it
be
tomorrow.
interested in, I would be interested in reading through that to see exactly what was agreed to.
Yeah. I have some stuff here, and I'll send it.
Yeah, Rick, I have the application.
Yeah, I'll have it.
I have what was the town meeting, but I have the application submittal right here. So,
Okay.
Okay.
I think you can get the exact motion too, which would have the exact wording.
Yeah.
We can get that though.
Were these each individual motions, or was the CPC grant as a whole one motion, as it's been in recent years?
No, I don't remember exactly, but I suspect on this one, because of the amount of money involved, there was the omnibus CPA motion that we already have, but when you purchase property, you have to have a separate motion to deal with all the different ways you can buy it, whether you can bond it. We didn't bond it because we had enough money, but I think there probably was a separate article, but it's very narrowly written. It's I suspect it says you purchased this property for us, I'm certain, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on, and the next item is our election. I think we talked about this last time. Brian has graciously agreed to take the race. Lucky you, Brian. So I think unless there's a lot of discussion, it would be easiest for somebody just to make a motion to nominate Brian as the chair, and then we can take
So
a vote.
moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think we have to take a roll call on this just to be certain. So let's see. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, Brian?
Aye.
You can vote for yourself. That's okay.
Yeah.
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
And myself, John? Aye. So unanimous vote.
What about me?
Oh, what about you, Frank? I didn't know you were there. Here, still, you're nice and quiet. Frank, you vote.
I vote yay.
Okay.
Yes.
What's a unanimous vote? 6-0. So congratulations, Brian.
Thank you.
Lucky you.
Congratulations.
All right, and we probably ought to put forth a vice chair. I'd like to, if we can, nominate John to stay on in the capacity as vice chair, just to keep the continuation going. So that's a formal motion.
Second.
So let's see. I guess I could still take the vote. Bill?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
And John votes aye. So there we are. So you have the gavel, the virtual gavel, Brian.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And John, thank you for obviously for your years of service and stewardship on the committee, and thank you guys for anyway. I'm ready to move forward. So we have a lot of stuff to do through our virtual meetings here. So
Yeah.
all right. Now I guess next on our agenda, was, this is from our minutes of last week or last month, was to review the financials, review open projects. We were going to go, I think, run through each project kind of one by one and figure out what should be closed, what's open, where the status is. I guess what I would say is I do want to be mindful of everyone's time tonight, as we're already at 8:30 and we do have the sign discussion still to go. I don't know if everyone's comfortable tabling this until next month, or if people want to try and move forward with this tonight.
I would move to table it, because
Yeah.
it usually is sort of a long conversation, and also we don't have our rep. I think CJ, there's a lot of historical projects that drag on over years, and I don't think we'd really get good information. So I think I'd like to move that we table it, and then sort of, have everyone get, prepared by sort of reading up, and then, any projects they know about, reach out and try to figure out, what the status is.
Okay. That's a motion. Is that seconded?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. Rick?
Aye. Agreed.
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I vote yes as well. So it's a unanimous vote to table until next month. So next month. So if everyone could take a moment just to review that, and we'll pick it up running in November. So I'd like to go ahead and discuss next on the agenda the sign that the proposed sign that Laurie had submitted to us, I think, earlier in the month. If everyone has that as an attachment, I don't know, do we need to display that on the board for everyone to see? I'm not sure if I even had the ability to here.
I can do it. Hang on, give me 1 second. I can pull it up. There we go. Okay, 1 second. I'll get it right there. Here we are, and let me just get it in view.
There we go. Great.
Someone had made a good point the other day in the email, but I can't remember it now.
I think I was the other one who made a point and nearly violated open meeting laws. So before Lori reminded me, I had to put
That's
this on
right.
the meeting.
We all did.
So yeah, my comment on this was that we should have it read the Community Preservation Committee, not necessarily the Act.
Yes.
And I think it, admittedly, may be a little bit nitpicky, but I want to make sure that the connotation isn't that this was funded through a single legislative act, but rather an ongoing committee of citizens who are regularly reviewing and meeting and talking about all these sorts of things, and expect to see more of these signs popping up around town in the future. I think that's my only note behind that.
Totally agree.
My only thought is, I mean, I like the fact that it references paid through the citizens. I like that sentiment. Let me just, I'm trying to think of, this playground is funded in part by the citizens of North Andover through the Community Preservation Act. Maybe this playground was funded by the Community Preservation Committee. It does get a little too wordy to say funded by, CPA tax funds. I know that's really clunky, but I don't know if that's worth it or not.
The only thing that the only thought I had is I could see, just putting, as Brian suggested, the word committee in as opposed to act, because that becomes a real thing and real people, which I think Brian was a good point. Obviously, the sign will change because not everything is a playground, I presume, right? So you say this building or this is, and, you know, to some degree, the word in part may not be correct because CPA may provide all the funding. So we went, you know, the playgrounds, all the funding for the playgrounds comes from the CPA. So, you know, again, I don't need it all being because I think it's 90% right. I could live with it with just committee. The only thing that, you know, I'm thinking of is, did anybody go onto the, you know, the Community Preservation Coalition website to see if they had examples of signs that other towns used? I bet they have that. You know, or I could send Stuart a note and ask him.
Mhm.
I have not done that. I'm actually doing it right now. I don't know. I think this largely achieves kind of what I think what our original goal was. Now, was this, and I'm not entirely sure, was this proposed strictly for the playgrounds? Because you know, we got attached an estimate to, I think, install 16 of these or so. Does anyone know the answer to that? Or 12 of them? Sorry, we got an invoice to install 12 of these for $60 a piece, which I don't know if we're supposed to be voting on that tonight or not. That wasn't made clear to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have administrative money, so that's not going to be a problem. It's just a question: are you ready to pull the trigger on this and say go ahead and do it?
Okay. I mean, you know, not being a graphic designer or anything else, I don't want to overthink this, you know, too much. I think I want to get the signs up there as soon as is practical. So, to me, you know, as long as we get the committee on there instead of act, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, probably the only other change, I think committee is the right thing, and I might strike in part if it's just for playgrounds, because in fact, all the money is coming from the CPA. So,
okay, yeah, if you want to strike in part,
yeah,
that'll make more room for the word committee too. So,
yeah, there you go. Yeah, you'll be able to. Yeah,
I don't have a history on this side. I do on the ones for the athletic fields. But my question is in regard to the playgrounds. These were all existing playgrounds. Not to have too much of a play on words, but isn't it the improvements to the playground that have been funded by CPC?
yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you're right only in the sense that I believe that I think in every case they literally replaced all the equipment.
Yeah.
The only thing that was left really was the land. So I don't think it's fair to say this playground. I mean, unfair to say it's this playground because none of the existing structures were kept.
well, and that makes in part almost more accurate, right? Because we didn't pay for the land.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't want to overly parse it, so I could live with committee. Nobody's going to look at it in detail anyway. They're just going to see Community Preservation Committee, and that's what we want.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I know that when we looked at some other signs, and I spoke to Terry about this, there was discussion about putting a QR code on there that if it was scanned would refer you back to give you more information on either on the project. Is that something that's been considered or not for this sign?
That's a great idea. I would love to be able to even send it back to, I can't believe how many people don't even know what the Community Preservation Act is or what that 3% on their tax bill is. So if we could do like both, that would be fantastic. I love that idea.
I know that Dawn Sign Tech has that capability because I've actually got a model sign with the QR code on it that would have had the ability to do that. So it would be nice to be able to give people the opportunity to find out exactly what CPA is, because I think you're right, Tracy. Most people don't know what that is.
They don't. You'd be surprised. Every time a tax bill comes out, I get phone calls. What's that, 3%? You know what I mean? Like, they don't. So I would love,
Right.
that's a great idea, Rick. I love that. I didn't realize we could actually do that on the signs. That's awesome. And I know Dawn's makes great signs, but I don't know if she's a vendor, but I love that idea.
I am going to go and immediately contradict myself now because I just went to the CPC website and they've got about 20 signs up there and every one of them does say Community Preservation Act. I disagree with it still. I still wouldn't change, but that is what they say on ones. If we are concerned about that, but I still would stick with my original suggestion.
Well, I'd love the addition that Rick mentioned. I think that would be fantastic. I don't care how it's written.
Okay.
As long as people know that it's their tax dollars.
Correct.
Yeah, committees go with it, Brian. I think that's fine.
Okay. All right. And so along with this, we have a proposal from the vendor for 12 signs and 24 chain link brackets for a total of $888 to be installed as well. So I don't know if someone wants to make a motion on this.
Before we make a motion, though, could we just look into Rick's suggestion?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sorry. You're right, Tracy. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll follow back with Lori on that and figure out what needs to happen. I don't know if it's something that, because if it needs to be, if we need to have the website up and running first, or if we can just, and then do the QR code after. But either way, I'll make the suggestion that we leave a place for the QR codes to make sure they're there.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the website is, essentially.
I don't even, I'm sorry, Bill.
I was going to say, the website is built and you can tab onto the properties and so forth. I think it really would be, I think we'd go to the same site with a map with a bunch of, I guess it's tricky. We could figure it out. It might take a little bit more
even if
work to have something that
temporarily,
could display on a phone,
right, but even if temporarily it didn't go to the website because it's still kind of iffy, if it just went to a definition of Community Preservation
Right.
Act. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty static page.
Even,
Yeah.
right, like a static page and then enhance it as we go. I love the idea.
I agree.
Now, when you say chain link, is this, so when we're mounting this,
I don't have an example of how it's mounted. It just looks like there's, 2 chain link brackets for each sign. So I don't know. I don't have an example of how it's intended to be installed.
Yeah.
Would you guys like me to get an example from Laurie of where it's intended to go?
Sure.
yeah, I think
Yes.
it would help if we're gonna wait on the QR codes, might as well figure that out.
Yeah. No, I'll get up.
Yeah.
We've gotten this.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, some of them, like Grogies, for example, might be kind of tricky because it's like, just thinking back, the entrances up by the street, and then you walk to, all the way down behind sort of the backstop where actually it's not the backstop. You walk all the way across the outfield to get there. So if you put it on the chain link fence, it might be hard for people to.
Down at the end of, is it Francis? No, the other one. There's an entrance at the end.
Yeah, there's 2 entrances.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a nice, but I remember there was a nice sign kind of installed on the ground right there as you walked up, which was nice. So if it could, I don't know if it could go in the ground in some places, and I don't know if that's something we want to get in the weeds on that, or.
So the proposal is then not to put them on the granite bounds like the other town signs.
It doesn't appear that way. No.
Okay.
Why don't I get clarification from Lori on that, and we can bring it back for a discussion next meeting.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Anything else on signs? I do think that we'll probably, so this is specific to the playgrounds. We still need to probably figure out a signage solution for other properties, protected properties,
Yep.
all of that. So, I like the idea of continuing a similar theme. So residents see that branding, so to speak, in the CPC, whether it's on a playground or protected lot or historic building, they start to associate it with the CPC. So if everyone's okay with that general design, we'll see what we can do about taking the next steps to get that applied wherever we can, within reason, obviously. We're not going to slap a sign on the entrance to Ridgewood Cemetery necessarily.
Yeah. No.
Okay. All right. Next agenda is to approve the minutes from March 12th, which we weren't able to approve last meeting because we didn't have a sufficient quorum of members who were attending that last meeting. And I think we are probably in the same situation tonight, since Rick and Tracy were not at that meeting. So that just leaves me, Bill, John, and Francis able to vote. So I think we'll have to table that till next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And it looks like so the next agenda would be to approve the meeting minutes from last month, September 10th. Rick, obviously you weren't there, but I believe the rest of us were.
Yep, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
I wasn't there.
You weren't there?
Shoot, that's right, Frank wasn't there.
Okay.
Shoot.
All right. November we'll be approving a lot of minutes. Okay. All right. That is all I have on the agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, we're going to do a roll call on this one. John?
Yes.
Frank?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
And I vote yes, it is unanimous. Thank you everybody for your time tonight. And I guess we'll do this all again in November.